Earth 2242. Humanity had enjoyed 2 centuries of peace and prosperity since joining the galactic community. War was considered an obsolete concept, found only in history books and simulation games. Earth cities were modern, green, with citizens focused on art, soft sciences, and peculiar hobbies, like the Universal Origami Championship or competitions to compose haiku in dolphin language. Dr. Eris Thorne, a military historian in his 40s, was considered eccentric for his passion for researching Earth's ancient wars. He ran a small historical combat reenactment club, where members dressed as ancient warriors and played battle with harmless weapons. People viewed this as a harmless, even slightly silly hobby. Ambassador Zorp Glorbax, the representative of the powerful Krillian Empire on Earth, was outwardly polite but secretly looked down on humans for their softness and lack of ambition. He was covertly gathering information, believing Earth would be an easy target for territorial expansion. Life in New Geneva, an international megacity famous for its nature-integrated architecture, flowed peacefully. Citizens went about their daily routines, blissfully unaware of the danger looming above them on the Krillian diplomatic space station. Then everything changed. The Krillian Empire, based on Zorp's reports that humanity had completely lost the ability to fight, abruptly declared a protectorate over Earth and issued an ultimatum demanding the dismantling of all remaining symbolic defense forces within 72 hours. A massive Krillian fleet appeared in orbit. The Earth Council fell into panic. While Earth's government debated whether to surrender or offer feeble resistance, a secret signal spread through unexpected channels: space gardening forums, ancient galactic warrior, e-sport tournaments, intergalactic cosplay groups, and even networks of exotic pet owners. The signal was an ancient saying: when ancestors call, descendants answer. Eris Thorne and his club suddenly received attention. Their toy weapons were secretly upgraded with hidden nanotechnology. People from all walks of life began to gather. Old Alara, a renowned potter, was actually a retired explosives expert who could turn vases into camouflage grenades. The Space Saboteurs gamer group used their exceptional drone control skills to spy on and attack small Krillian targets. Famous chefs turned kitchen tools into deadly close combat weapons, and cooking competitions became disguised tactical training. Gardeners transformed plants into passive biological weapons or natural traps. Zorp Glorbax and the Krillian commanders witnessed Earth's initial chaos and became even more convinced of human weakness. They began deploying small armies to major cities to stabilize the situation, but encountered strange and unconventional resistance that confused them. Delivery drones dropping paint bombs on Krillian soldiers' visors, constant accidents in public transportation systems splitting enemy formations, random street festivals erupting with ear-piercing music jamming Krillian communication systems. Eris became a reluctant leader, connecting the spontaneous resistance groups. He realized his military history knowledge wasn't useless after all. He began applying ancient tactics to the modern context, using the Krillians' own overconfidence against them. The Krillian fleet lost patience and decided to launch a large-scale landing in New Geneva, Earth's nerve center, to impose their dominance once and for all. Brutal Krillian General Kthar personally commanded the operation. The obsolete defense system of New Geneva, actually public art installations secretly weaponized, unexpectedly activated, causing initial damage to the Krillian landing forces. Skyscrapers transformed into fortresses, parks into ambush zones. New Geneva civilians, under the command of Eris and local leaders, head chefs, library managers, subway controllers, joined the battle. The Suicide Food Delivery Bicycle Squad attached jamming devices and charged into Krillian robot formations. Street artists used 3D projectors to create illusions that fooled enemy troops. The Housewife Brigade wielded titanium-reinforced non-stick pans and vacuum cleaners converted into improvised rocket launchers. Even city animals participated in unexpected ways. Messenger pigeons trained to drop jamming chips, and the British Royal Corgi security dogs borrowed to sneak around and surprise attack. Eris, wearing a samurai armor made of ultralight but durable material, originally a cosplay prop, faced off against a high-ranking Krillian commander. He used ancient sword techniques combined with dirty tricks learned from B-grade action movies. Zorp Glorbax, realizing his mistake and humanity's incredible resilience, tried to contact Thar to suggest withdrawal, but was ignored. Thar, in his fury, ordered the use of a light destruction weapon aimed at a residential area as a show of force. Thar's order was blocked by an unexpected system error caused by teenage gamers infiltrating the Krillian command network using code based on the logic of an ancient video game. Krillian forces in New Geneva suffered heavy losses and fell into disarray in the face of diverse and unconventional resistance. Thar was neutralized by a group of street circus performers using nets and ropes in an improvised monster-catching show. News of the defeat in New Geneva spread throughout the Krillian fleet, causing dismay. Small human uprisings also began in other cities. Zorp Glorbax, taking advantage of the chaotic situation, contacted the Galactic Council directly, revealing the truth about humans' hidden combat potential and the Krillian Empire's misjudgment, while pleading for a ceasefire. Eris Thorn, now an unwitting hero, represented Earth in the ceasefire negotiations. He didn't demand revenge, but recognition and respect. The remaining Krillian forces on Earth began to withdraw in astonishment and somewhat embarrassment at being defeated by things they had once mocked. A new peace was established. The Krillian Empire had to pay reparations and publicly apologize. Earth was recognized as a power with unique defense methods. Humanity no longer underestimated its past and seemingly useless skills. Eris's historical combat reenactment club became famous, attracting thousands of members. Sports and arts with tactical elements received investment for development. Humans still loved peace, but now understood it must be protected by readiness, even in the strangest ways. Eris Thorn became a special advisor to the Earth Council on non-traditional defense strategy. He maintained his modest and somewhat eccentric personality. Zorp Glorbax was recalled to Krillian and faced a military court, but thanks to his role in ending the war, he received a light sentence and later wrote a memoir titled, "I Underestimated the Gardeners." Old Alara opened a class teaching defensive arts with household items. A strange signal from a distant corner of the universe was detected. The Galactic Council asked Earth to share its experience in dealing with potential threats. Eris smiled, looking out the window where a group of children were playing battle with painted camouflage brooms. The war might have ended, but preparation never would. The artificial sun of New Geneva rose over the crystalline spires of the city, filtering through the vertical gardens that adorned nearly every building. Dr. Eris Thorn stood in front of his classroom at the University of Historical Studies, adjusting the ancient helmet sitting on a display stand, a replica of a 21st century tactical helmet, meticulously crafted down to the scratches on its surface. "Professor, remind me again why we're studying these barbaric artifacts," asked a student, not bothering to look up from the holographic game floating above her palm. Eris smiled patiently. "Because, Lucia, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it," the class droned in unison, having heard the phrase countless times. "Mock if you will," Eris said, unbothered, "but these barbaric artifacts tell us who we were, and sometimes who we might need to be again." The students exchanged eye rolls. Outside the university's grand windows, a parade of dancers moved through the central plaza, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the trans-species communication breakthrough, the day humans finally decoded and could speak the language of dolphins, elephants, and most primates. Celebrations like this one were common in 2242. Humanity had much to celebrate after 2 centuries of peace and prosperity since joining the galactic community. War was a concept as foreign to these young people as dial-up internet or fossil fuel vehicles, relics of a primitive past. Eris dismissed his class early, knowing they'd be useless on a festival day. He gathered his materials, actual paper books, a rarity these days, and headed across town to the warehouse district where his real passion project waited. The Historical Combat Reenactment Club occupied an old shipping facility, its interior transformed with training mats, replica weapons hanging on walls, and makeshift arenas. Despite the state-of-the-art world outside, Eris had intentionally kept the space low-tech, authentic. Dr. Thorne, you're early, called Marcus Hot Pan Rossi, a celebrity chef with a temper as fiery as his signature dishes. He was practicing sword movements with a wooden katana, his large frame moving with surprising grace. Festival day. Class wasn't exactly captivated by the tactical innovations of the Second Korean War, Eris replied, setting down his satchel. Where are the others? Alara's mixing something in the back room. She says it's just clay slip for a new pottery demonstration, but it smells suspiciously like thermite, Marcus said with a grin. The rest will trickle in. You know how it is with the traffic redirects during festivals. Eris nodded and began arranging the day's practice weapons. Replica swords, shields, bows, and various improvised tools that ancient warriors had adapted in desperate times. His club members were an eclectic bunch. Chefs, gardeners, librarians, engineers, people deemed eccentric by modern society for their interest in the violent past. Across the city, in the gleaming tower of the Galactic Embassy, Ambassador Zorp Glorbax of the Krillian Empire stood by the panoramic window, watching the festival with thinly disguised contempt. His scaled skin shifted colors slightly, a sign of emotional response his kind could never fully suppress, despite centuries of evolution. Disgusting, he muttered to his aide, a junior officer named Klex. 200 years in the galactic community, and they spend their energy on dancing with sea mammals. The reports indicate they've entirely demilitarized, Ambassador, Klex replied, scrolling through data on a translucent tablet. Defense budget is less than 0.1% of their economy, primarily focused on asteroid deflection and space debris management. Their emergency response vessels don't even carry weapons. Zorp's scales rippled with pleasure. Perfect. And the Galactic Council still believes our story about increased voidling activity in this sector. Yes, sir. They've approved our fleet movements as precautionary measures. No one questions the Krillian Empire when we invoke security protocols. Zorp turned from a window, his vertical pupils contracting in the indoor light. Prepare the final assessment. I believe the High Command will find Earth quite appetizing. Back at the warehouse, Eris's club had assembled for their weekly meeting. 30 people of various ages and backgrounds stood in formation, practicing the movements of ancient Roman legionnaires, shield positions, short sword thrusts, and the critical footwork that had once allowed humans to conquer most of their planet. Remember, Eris called out, walking between the rows, the advantage wasn't superior strength. It was coordination, discipline, the ability to think and act as one organism. Old Alara, 80 if she was a day, moved with surprising precision. Whatever she'd been doing in the back room had left faint chemical burns on her fingers, which she hadn't bothered to have treated by modern medicine. Doctor, she said during a break, have you been keeping up with the fleet movements? Eris raised an eyebrow. Alara had once mentioned working in defense before retiring to pottery, but like many of his members, she rarely elaborated on her past. What fleet movements? The Krillian vessels. 17 dreadnoughts moved into our system over the past month. They're claiming it's routine patrol against some fictitious threat, but I've been monitoring their positions. She pulled out an actual paper map, another rarity, with hand-drawn notations. This isn't a patrol formation. It's an encirclement. Eris studied the map, a chill running through him. The Council hasn't said anything. The Council, Alara spat, believes every honeyed word the lizards say. They've forgotten what conquest looks like. We all have. Surely you're not suggesting. The building's lights flickered, then the power cut entirely. Emergency illumination kicked in, bathing everything in soft blue. That's not maintenance, Marcus said, setting down his practice sword. That's citywide. Eris pulled out his communication device, a sleek, transparent rectangle. News alerts were flooding in. His blood ran cold as he read the headline. Krillian Empire declares protective custody of Earth's sector, cites human vulnerability to external threats. He read further, his hands trembling slightly. The Krillians had issued a 72-hour ultimatum for Earth to dismantle its token defense forces and accept Krillian security personnel in all major cities. "It's happening," Alaris said quietly. "Just like Novo Brazil in '93. The club members gathered around, faces illuminated by the blue emergency lighting and the glow of their devices. Fear was evident, but something else too, a strange alertness like animals sensing a shift in the wind before a storm. "What do we do?" asked Jia, a botanical engineer who specialized in extinct medicinal plants. "We should contact the Council, demand protection under the Galactic Charter." Alara laughed, a harsh sound. "The Council won't oppose the Krillians. Too risky. They'll issue strongly worded statements while the lizards set up shop in our cities. Then we fight," Marcus said simply, his hand tightening around the practice sword. The room fell silent. The concept was almost absurd. 30 hobbyists with wooden weapons against an interstellar empire. Eris looked around at his club members, seeing the same realization dawn on each face. They've been playing at being warriors. The universe was about to call their bluff. "No," Eris finally said. "Not like this. Not yet." He tapped his device, bringing up a secure messaging program that hadn't been used in decades. A relic from Earth's more paranoid days. "First, we need to wake the sleepers." "The what?" asked one of the younger members. Alara smiled, suddenly looking decades younger. "Oh, I was hoping you'd say that. The contingency protocols were never officially deactivated, you know. Just dormant." Eris typed a simple message, an ancient saying that would seem meaningless to most. When ancestors call, descendants answer. He pressed send, and the message disappeared into the old emergency broadcast system, designed to reach every communication network on and around Earth. "Now, what?" Marcus asked. "Now," Eris said, "we prepare, and we wait for the others." Above Earth, the Krillian flagship Dominant Claw hovered in geosynchronous orbit over the Atlantic Ocean. General Kthar, a battle-scarred veteran with ritual notches cut into his natural armor plates, reviewed the deployment plans with his officers. "Ambassador Glorbax reports minimal resistance expected," he said, gesturing to the holographic map of Earth's major cities. "Their council is debating whether to protest formally or simply capitulate. Either way, we begin landing security forces in these 20 locations at the 48-hour mark. Full occupation within a standard week." "Sir," ventured a junior officer, "what about the historical data? Humans have a well-documented propensity for violence in their pre-galactic era." Kthar made a dismissive gesture. "Ancient history. They've been neutered by prosperity and peace. 2 centuries without conflict has bred all the warrior spirit out of them. They'll fold like tissue." The officers nodded, accepting their commander's assessment. None wanted to appear overly cautious and risk their career advancement. On Earth, something strange was happening. In homes, workplaces, and recreational facilities across the planet, people received Eris's message. Most ignored it as spam or a festival prank. But a surprising number paused, set down whatever they were doing, and began accessing long-dormant data channels and contacting people they hadn't spoken with in years. In a luxury apartment in New Geneva, the teenage gaming team Space Saboteurs received the message during their virtual reality tournament. Their captain, a lanky 16-year-old named Ravi, removed his immersion helmet and stared at his teammates. "It's time," he said simply. Instead of returning to their game, they initiated a hidden program on their gaming systems, transforming the interface from fantasy battles to actual drone control software. Screens filled with technical specifications for thousands of delivery, maintenance, and personal drones scattered throughout the city. In a 3-star restaurant across town, Chef Lydia Wong received the same message. Without a word to her staff, she walked to the massive freezer, entered a code on a hidden panel, and watched as a section of wall slid away, revealing not food, but an arsenal of cooking implements modified for decidedly non-culinary purposes. All across Earth, similar scenes played out. The message activated dormant networks, revealing that many of humanity's harmless hobbies had been covered for maintaining skills and equipment that might one day be needed. It was Earth's oldest, best-kept secret. The appearance of total demilitarization had been carefully cultivated, while combat capabilities were preserved through seemingly innocent activities. Historical reenactment clubs maintained knowledge of tactics and hand-to-hand combat. Competitive cooking preserved knowledge of chemistry and precision timing. Gaming tournaments honed reflexes and maintained drone operation skills. Even gardening clubs had preserved knowledge of which plants could heal or harm. For 2 centuries, humanity had presented a facade of gentle artistic pursuits to the galaxy, all while keeping the pilot light of their warrior past burning quietly, disguised as cultural eccentricities. 48 hours after their ultimatum, the Krillians began their security deployment in New Geneva. Drop ships descended through the atmosphere, landing in the central plaza where the festival had been held just days before. Armored Krillian soldiers, standing nearly 7 feet tall, with natural plating and advanced weapons, marched out in perfect formation to secure the area. They expected cowering civilians or perhaps token resistance from local authorities. They found neither. The plaza was eerily empty. Perimeter secure, Commander, reported a squad leader. Minimal civilian presence. They appear to be avoiding the area. Commander Vex, a decorated veteran, felt uneasy. Too easy. Where are the protesters? The curious onlookers? Deploy recon drones and sweep adjacent streets. The small aerial drones launched, darting down side streets and between buildings. Most reported nothing unusual, just empty thoroughfares, as if the population had decided to stay indoors. Then the drones began to fail. One by one, their signals cut out. Soon, all 20 reconnaissance units were offline. Communications disruption, a technician reported. Local jamming technology. Primitive, but effective. Commander Vex's unease grew into alarm. Formed defensive positions. Some things. The first attack came not from soldiers or weapons, but from the city itself. The decorative fountains in the plaza suddenly increased pressure, spraying the Krillian troops with a sticky substance mixed with the water. It hardened rapidly on contact with their armor, jamming joints, and weapons mechanisms. Then a swarm of food delivery drones descended from surrounding buildings, not with their usual cargo of meals, but with containers of paint that they dropped precisely onto the Krillians' helmet visors, blinding them. From every side street came a surge of humanity, not military personnel, but ordinary citizens wielding the strangest assortment of weapons the Krillians had ever seen. Chefs in white coats charged with kitchen knives and meat tenderizers, attacking with the precision of trained assassins. Gardeners sprayed aerosols that irritated Krillian respiratory systems, while dropping caltrops made from hardened plant thorns. Maintenance workers wielded industrial tools repurposed as devastating melee weapons. And leading a group of costumed enthusiasts was Dr. Eris Thorn, wearing what appeared to be ancient samurai armor, swinging a katana that sliced through Krillian tech with surprising effectiveness. The Krillian unit, despite their superior training and equipment, found themselves completely unprepared for the chaotic, multi-directional assault. Their tactics were designed for conventional warfare against organized military units, not this bewildering guerrilla attack from civilians using the city itself as a weapon. Similar scenes played out at each Krillian landing site worldwide. In Mumbai, the spice markets became chemical warfare zones, with precisely calculated mixtures causing Krillian troops to choke and retreat. In Rio de Janeiro, carnival performers used their acrobatic skills to outmaneuver the invaders, while unleashing trained parrots to dive bomb and distract. On the dominant claw, General Kthar received increasingly frantic reports from his ground forces. His scales flushed dark with rage. "Impossible!" he roared, smashing a holographic display. "They're civilians. Untrained." Soft. Zorp Glorbacks, who had been summoned from the embassy, seemed equally bewildered. Our intelligence was comprehensive, general. 2 centuries of observation confirmed their complete demilitarization. Then explain this. Thar gestured wildly at the incoming footage showing a group of elderly birdwatchers using high-powered spotting scopes to direct precision strikes against Krillian positions. I cannot, Zorp admitted. Unless, could they have been deceiving us? All this time, the thought was so outrageous that Thar nearly had the ambassador thrown out the airlock for suggesting it. The idea that an entire species could maintain such a deception for centuries was inconceivable to the straightforward Krillian mind. But the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. Back in New Geneva, the battle raged through the afternoon. The Krillians had retreated to defensive positions, abandoning their original plan to secure government buildings. Their superior technology and physical strength were being negated by the humans' intimate knowledge of the urban terrain and their willingness to use utterly unconventional tactics. Eris found himself coordinating with resistance groups across the city using a makeshift command center in his warehouse. Information flowed in from unlikely sources. Traffic controllers who tracked Krillian movements, library archivists who had preserved ancient military manuals, even a group of theater performers using stage makeup and props to create distractions. The northeastern sector is secure, reported Alara, who had somehow procured explosive devices that looked suspiciously like her pottery pieces. The lizards tried to establish a landing zone at the university, but the chemistry department had something to say about that. Good, Eris nodded, studying a physical map of the city where they tracked enemy positions. Digital systems were too vulnerable to Krillian tech. What about the space saboteurs? Any word? As if on cue, Ravi's voice came through on the radio. Actual radio, another obsolete technology that had proven invaluable. Dr. Thorne, we've gained partial access to their command network. It's complicated stuff, but we're making progress. They're really into hierarchical command structures. Totally predictable once you understand the pattern. Keep at it, Eris encouraged. If you can disrupt their communications, even temporarily, we can. He was interrupted by a massive explosion that shook the building. Outside, a Krillian dropship had deployed directly above their location. They've found us, Marcus said, grabbing his weapons. No longer practice blades, but actual combat-modified kitchen knives. We need to move. Eris looked around at the headquarters they'd established, the maps and communication equipment. No time to relocate. We stand and fight. The roof partially collapsed as Krillian troops began to descend on cables. Alara calmly reached into her bag, pulled out what appeared to be decorative clay spheres, and began breaking them in specific spots before rolling them toward the intruders. Fire in the hole, she announced casually. The resulting explosion was precisely calculated, enough to sever the descent cables and create chaos, but not enough to bring down the entire building. In the confusion, Eris led a counterattack with his core team, fighting with a skill that would have seemed impossible for hobbyists. In close quarters, the Krillian size worked against them. The humans moved like water, flowing around obstacles, striking at vulnerable joints in the aliens' natural armor, working in coordinated teams despite having no formal military training. One Krillian commander, more observant than his peers, noticed something odd in the humans' fighting style. They're using ancient techniques, he reported back to the flagship. Formations from their historical records. Fighting methods that haven't been employed in centuries. On the dominant claw. This information finally triggered a realization in Ambassador Glorbax. He turned to General Kthar, scales pale with shock. The hobbies, he whispered, they're ridiculous pastimes. The historical reenactments, the cooking competitions, the gaming tournaments, they weren't just entertainment. Kthar stared at him. Speak plainly, diplomat. They've been training. All this time, disguised as cultural activities. They never forgot how to fight. They just changed how they preserve the knowledge. Zorp's voice grew stronger as the pieces fell into place. We've walked into a trap 200 years in the making. Kthar hissed in derision. Absurd. No species could maintain such a deception across generations. No species except humans, Zorp insisted. Look at their history. Adaptability is their defining trait. When direct military power became obsolete in the galactic age, they didn't abandon their warrior nature. They transformed it. The general's eyes narrowed as he considered the ambassador's words against the mounting evidence of unexpected resistance. If true, it would represent a catastrophic intelligence failure and a direct threat to his career and possibly his life. Enough games, Thar decided. Prepare the city neutralizer. We'll make an example of New Geneva. Zorp's scales flashed in alarm. General, that's a violation of galactic law. You can't use planetary bombardment against civilian centers. Watch me, diplomat, Thar growled. The humans have revealed their true nature. The Empire will respond accordingly. On the bridge, technicians began the firing sequence for the ship's main weapon, a directed energy cannon capable of removing a city from a map. Zorp, realizing diplomacy had failed, slipped away during the commotion, making his way to a secure communication terminal. Against all protocol and possibly committing treason, he sent an emergency transmission to the Galactic Council, revealing the truth about Earth's resistance and the Krillians' planned atrocity. In New Geneva, the battle had spilled from the warehouse district into the heart of the city. The central administrative buildings had become a fortress, with ordinary office workers using everything from staples to holograms as defensive measures. Eris found himself fighting alongside Marcus and a group of librarians who wielded hardcover books as shields and paper cutters as slashing weapons. They had been driven back steadily, but were making the Krillians pay for every meter. We can't hold indefinitely, Marcus admitted, bleeding from a gash on his arm. There are too many of them, and they keep bringing in reinforcements. Eris nodded grimly. We just need to last until... His communication device buzzed. It was Ravi from the Space Saboteurs. Dr. Thorne, we're in. We've breached their command network using code based on Galaxy Conquest 4. Turns out their system architecture has similarities to the game's enemy AI. Can you disrupt their operations? Eris asked urgently. Better, Ravi replied, his voice triumphant. We've detected a weapons targeting sequence initiating from their flagship. They're planning to destroy the city. But we've inserted a critical error in their firing protocol. When they try to activate it, aboard the Dominant Claw, Thar gave the final authorization. Fire the neutralizer. Let the humans learn the cost of resistance. The weapons officer pressed the activation sequence. Instead of the expected power surge, all systems on the bridge went dark. Emergency lighting flickered on, bathing the command center in dim red. What happened? Thar demanded. System corruption, sir, the officer reported, frantically working controls that no longer responded. Some kind of virus. It's spreading through all command functions. On every screen throughout the ship, the same message appeared, a crude animation of a human face sticking out its tongue, accompanied by text in the Krillian language. Game over. Insert credit to continue. Thar roared in fury, but the damage was done. The ship's weapons systems were locked in safety mode, and reports were coming in of similar disruptions throughout the fleet. Somehow, using technology that should have been primitive by galactic standards, the humans had hacked the most advanced warships in the quadrant. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council station, Zorp's message had caused an unprecedented emergency session. Representatives from 100 worlds witnessed the footage of Krillian troops attacking civilian centers and the planned city destruction that had narrowly been averted. The Council, awakened to the threat, dispatched a peacekeeping fleet to the Earth system with orders to establish a ceasefire and investigate the Krillian aggression. In New Geneva, the Krillian forces suddenly found themselves receiving contradictory orders or no orders at all. Their communication systems played human music or emitted cooking recipe instructions. Navigation systems directed troops into fountains or dead ends. Thar, refusing to accept defeat, took personal command of Squadron and headed to Earth's surface to take control of the deteriorating situation. His drop ship landed in the central plaza, now scarred from battle but still recognizable. As he emerged with his elite guards, he found a single human waiting for him, Dr. Eris Thorne, still in his modified samurai armor, bloodied but standing tall. Surrender, human, Thar demanded, towering over Eris. Your tricks have caused delays, nothing more. Eris smiled tiredly. General, look around you. This isn't a delay. This is defeat. From every direction, humans emerged. Not just fighters, but citizens of all kinds, armed with an impossible variety of makeshift weapons and defiant expressions. You could kill me, Eris continued. You might kill many of us, but you've already lost the moment you believed we had forgotten our nature. Humanity loves peace, General. We treasure it above all things. But that doesn't mean we ever forgot how to fight. Before Thar could respond, a new light appeared in the sky, the distinctive engines of Galactic Council peacekeeping vessels entering the atmosphere. The General's communication device activated with an override signal, informing him that a ceasefire had been declared and Krillian forces were ordered to stand down immediately. Thar looked from the sky to the human before him, his reptilian features twisted in rage and disbelief. After a moment of tension, when it seemed he might attack regardless of orders, he lowered his weapon. This isn't over, he hissed. Actually, came a familiar voice. It is. Ambassador Zorp Glorbax emerged from the council ship that had just landed. General Kthar, by order of the Galactic Council and with the reluctant agreement of the Empire, you are relieved of command pending investigation into war crimes. The general's scales darkened with fury, but he was surrounded by council peacekeepers. With no choice, he surrendered his weapons and was taken into custody. In the days that followed, a new reality took shape. The Krillian invasion force withdrew from Earth orbit under council supervision. Reparation agreements were drafted, and most significantly, Earth's status in the galactic community was reassessed. 2 weeks after what became known as the New Geneva Stand, Eris found himself in the Grand Council chamber, representing Earth in diplomatic negotiations. The contrast wasn't lost on him, from eccentric historian to planetary spokesman in less than a month. The question remains, said the council chairperson, a luminous being from an ancient race. Why did Earth maintain combat capabilities in secret for 2 centuries? This deception has caused considerable concern among member worlds. Eris chose his words carefully. We never sought to deceive, merely to adapt. When we joined the galactic community, we embraced its principles of peace wholeheartedly. But our history taught us that peace must always be protected. So we found a new way to preserve old knowledge, integrating it into our culture, our hobbies, our everyday lives. A 200-year contingency plan, mused the chairperson. Most species couldn't maintain such foresight across generations. We hope never to need these skills again, Eris said sincerely. But if history has taught us anything, it's that hope is not a strategy. After lengthy deliberation, the Council issued its ruling. Earth would remain a full member of the galactic community, but with a new designation as a Cultural Heritage Defense Authority, recognition of humanity's unique approach to preserving both peace and security. The Krillian Empire, humiliated by the failed invasion and exposed violation of galactic law, was forced to pay significant reparations and accept restrictions on its military activities. General Kthar faced trial for war crimes, while Ambassador Zorp Glorbax, despite technically committing treason against his empire, was quietly reassigned to a remote diplomatic post rather than punished, his actions having ultimately prevented a greater catastrophe. On Earth, life gradually returned to normal, yet profoundly changed. The Historical Combat Reenactment Club expanded into a global institution with branches in every city. Similar groups focused on other aspects of defense received new recognition and resources. Eris Thorn offered prestigious positions in the planetary government, instead accepted a role as special advisor on non-traditional defense strategy. He still taught his classes at the university, though now they were standing room only. Old Alara opened an academy teaching defensive arts with household items, which became a most popular continuing education course on 3 continents. The teenage space saboteurs were recruited by Earth's new cyber defense initiative, though they were only allowed to work after completing their homework. And humanity, while maintaining its love for art, music, and peaceful pursuits, embraced a new honesty about its dual nature. The skills that had saved them, creativity, adaptability, the ability to turn everyday objects into tools of resistance, were celebrated rather than disguised. 6 months after the invasion, Eris stood in his rebuilt warehouse, watching a new generation of students practice ancient Roman formations, no longer a quirky hobby, but recognized training. Marcus worked with another group on the fine art of knife, fighting disguised as culinary precision. Eris's communication device buzzed with a priority message from the council. A strange signal had been detected from a distant corner of the universe, possibly a new civilization or an unknown threat. Given humanity's unique perspectives on defense, Earth was being asked to contribute to the investigation team. Looking out the window, Eris spotted a group of children playing in a nearby park. They were engaged in a mock battle using painted brooms as weapons, mimicking the tactics they'd heard about in the New Geneva stand. One child, playing the Krillian general, dramatically fell to the ground in defeat while the others cheered. Eris smiled. The war was over, but the lesson it taught would endure. Peace was precious, civilized society a treasure, and both were worth defending by any means necessary, even the most unexpected. When he returned to his office at the university that evening, he found a package waiting, a book delivered from a distant world. The title made him laugh out loud. I Underestimated the Gardeners, a memoir by former ambassador Zorp Glorbax. Opening to the first page, he read the handwritten inscription, "To the history professor who taught me that history itself can be a weapon. May we both continue learning." Beneath the book was a small potted plant, harmless-looking, but Eris recognized it as a species whose sap could temporarily paralyze a Krillian. A warning, a gift, and a reminder all in one. Humanity hadn't forgotten how to fight. They had simply found new ways to remember.